Leitner puts it up.
You're listening to the Culture State Podcast.
Get ready. Woo.
Can I kick it?
Yes, you can.
Can I kick it?
Yes, you can.
This is the Culture State Podcast, and today we are kicking it with the head coach of the NC Courage. His name is Mr. Sean Nahas. Thank you guys for listening. My name is Chris Lee.
I'm Dennis Cox, also known as Dennis Jamel Cox, according to that guy, Chris Lee.
Yeah, it's the name that I gave him. I think it's a wonderful name, by the way.
It does roll well.
It really does. It sounds very good. And hopefully your grandmother is accepting of it now, or maybe she's not.
No idea, to be honest. No idea.
So anyway, we have Mr. Sean Nahas, who's on the show today for Culture State. Going to be amazing. If you're not familiar with him, he is the head coach of the NC Courage. The NC Courage is the professional women's soccer team that's located in the Raleigh-Durham, Cary area. They play in Cary, but you can call Raleigh their home. And you may have missed it, or maybe you haven't missed it, but last year Paul Riley was their head coach. But then, of course, there was a crazy firestorm of information. Two former players that didn't play for the Courage for Riley said that they alleged him of sexual inappropriateness or sexual. I wouldn't necessarily say assault, but basically he was being very inappropriate with how he was handling them as a coach. You can go back and read a lot of that stuff. Sean Nahas was the person who was next in line, basically under him on his staff, then got the interim job, then got the full head coach role. And so now we're talking to him about what's been going on with him since then. And we're not going to rehash a lot of the past in this interview, but it was very good at least to catch up with him, to talk to him and see how things were going since all that.
Well, let's not wait any further. Sean Nahas next.
All right, it's another great episode of the Culture State Podcast, and this time we have the head coach of the NC Courage, Mr. Sean Nahas. He just took over officially this season. Of course, he was shortly the interim head coach at the end of last season, so there's a lot to talk about with him. First off, thank you so much for joining us. And I just want to know, how long has it been? You've been in North Carolina for almost 20 years now, right?
I went to school in Queens, Charlotte, Queens University in Charlotte. But my brother has a training company called Next Level Academy, and he was starting. It was sort of getting on its way. So at the time, the youth club was Castle, now NCFC Youth. So I came down to necessarily work with my brother, and then joined on with Castle, and then sort of just exploded from there. After sort of starting my own little career up on Long Island as a coach once I was done playing.
What have you liked most about North Carolina compared to what it was like in Long Island?
Yeah, I mean, even though it's a slower pace, which is good for me. I'm more of an introvert, just sort of like to be on my own and chill out. Whereas Long Island and New York can sort of be the hustle and bustle, as I'm sure many people have heard.
Oh yeah.
I had a great upbringing there and loved my time there, but it was just time for a change. And moving down here, as you can see now, it's one of the greatest, best growing areas in the country. But you get the seasons, you have the beaches, not too far away. So it ticked all the boxes, and then most importantly, my family was here, so that was a massive piece.
You always hear that from folks. They mention the seasons as something. I grew up in the Triad area in Greensboro, and so I guess maybe there's something I kind of took for granted. So as you're kind of getting used to the seasons, and you can go to the mountains, you can go to the beaches, what are some of the areas in North Carolina that you like to go to, and what particular times of the year do you like to go there?
Yeah, I'm a beach guy.
Okay.
I'll be honest, I haven't been to the mountains other than playing against Asheville in the mountains. But I'm a beach guy. I'm a warm weather guy. I hate the cold, even though I was up in New York, but yeah, I mean, just having the opportunity to drive an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours just to go spend the weekend is so important. Just sometimes to get the break. We don't get many breaks, or having that. But the seasons were also important to me because, when I first moved down here, there was I think there was 4 snowflakes on the ground, and the town shut down for 6 months.
That's right.
Sounds like North Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah. Cars were being abandoned, and I asked my brother. I called my brother, what is going on? He's like, just go with the flow. So bread was off the shelves. It was chaos. So at that moment, I knew I made the right choice because I had the seasons. But yeah, that and the people here are unbelievable too.
Now I have a question. As someone, I just now stopped, literally about a week ago, coaching collegiately. I coach women's lacrosse.
Awesome.
So I have
He's announcing his
noticed-
retirement right now.
yeah, basically that to the public. So one thing that I've noticed from my time playing, and at least my early days recruiting, I started coaching October 2009, so like a year or so out of school, and the way the club culture has just evolved at the youth level. Whereas when I was growing up, you played in different rec leagues, you may have played in one summer tournament, but you play multiple different sports. But nowadays it seems like everyone's one sport playing on a club, and that's everything driving it, even from like kids in single digit ages. Are there things in the club culture that you think are beneficial? And what are some things that you think in the club culture that could change and may be a detriment to some young athletes?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always the question. When should someone specialize in something, right? And I feel, we don't force anything on anybody. I think it's just choices. But you have to have the players love the game, and if they want to come back, then you've done something right. And I think, young players will tell parents, I don't want to do that. If it's not something that they enjoy, they won't do it. I think the biggest driving force, though, and the biggest disconnect right now from probably that's changed over the years, is the level of competitions of leagues across the country, and everything is so spread out now. So, look, youth sports is a massive business.
Yeah,
it's become a massive business. So
huge business
when that happens, and I think when you look at it, it becomes, okay, well, I want my kid to play college soccer, I want my kid to go pro, but is that what the kid wants?
Yeah.
Right. That's the question. Is that what the kid wants? And then, okay, well, player A is committing to school A. Well, my kid has to commit to school A. And if that's not happening, why? And the one thing I always tell parents is, if your kid's not reaching that potential, it's no different than if you're in school. If your kid's not in honors classes, or if your kid's in honors classes, another kid is not, it doesn't mean anything. It just means that their level of understanding is a little bit different, and they're in those classes. But I think so often the standards is what really affects people, and as a result, I think that's what drives the fun away from players, is when the standards are forced on them in terms of, you need to do this, or expectations are forced on them, and then that's where they lose the love. If you go out and ask any of those players on the youth field, why do you play? 99.9% of them say, because I'm with my friends. And
That's big.
that's an important piece.
All right, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the North Carolina cuisine that's down here. We have a lot of different fattening options, of course. You got your cookouts, your Bojangles, all the other stuff, the barbecue that's down here. If you have a rough game and you're just like, I just want to eat something that's not good for me, just to not think about it anymore. Are you going to Cookout? You going to Bojangles? Where are you going that's down here? That's North Carolina specific.
It's a good question. I haven't really I don't go to Bojangles a lot. I don't know. I'm a massive pizza guy, I'll be honest with you. I'm a massive pizza guy. That has not left me.
Yeah, you brought that down with you, of course.
The New York type cooking is not. I haven't bought onto the barbecue stuff yet. I mean, I've had it, but I haven't bought onto it as much as everyone else maybe have. I went to the other day. I went to DeFara Pizza up the road here, the new pizza place that's from Brooklyn. Yeah, it's world famous in Brooklyn, and then their nephew came down and basically brought a whole water filtration system down to match the water that's up there for the dough. It's unbelievable pizza.
Oh wow!
So that's my go-to right now.
What's this
Hidden
called?
Dennis is about to write that
down. What's this called again?
It's DeFara, DIFARA Pizza Tavern.
Okay. All right. On Chatham Street in Cary. All right. It's already in my maps. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm getting that up here soon.
Yeah. Expect to see some content on his social media page.
Get the white pizza.
Oh, get the white pizza.
Yeah, the white and the regular pizza are unbelievable, but the ricotta, the mozzarella, and then it's unbelievable.
All right. That is already in there. Do they make something vegan for Chris? Chris is a vegan.
Oh, I don't know. I am the furthest thing from that, so I don't know. I'm not going to ask.
You and me me both.
Yeah,
man. You and me both.
that wouldn't fit in my family lifestyle with my way we were brought up, and every Sunday having a massive pasta bowl on the table and saying you got to finish it and you're not leaving until you finish it.
Yeah, I understand on that.
It's not barbecue. The place I really love is Barcelona Wine Grill downtown.
Okay.
It's a Spanish tapas place, and if I had a choice to live anywhere, Spain would be the place I'd always want to live, and down in my future. So, yeah, that's the stuff. The barbecue, I never like sweet tea.
I'll be honest, sweet tea is a little overrated. It's my opinion.
I'm with you. I'm with you on
overrated.
that. I think we're all on the same page with the sweet tea.
Yeah, like when I moved down here, like to me, iced tea is you can powder, water, ice, done, sweet as anything. I came down here I like an iced tea, and like sweet tea, I'm like, yeah, I guess. And I assumed it was the same thing, and I sipped on it, I said, this is not possible.
Nope.
Not possible.
I could taste the diabetes.
Yeah. I said, there's no chance. So I put it to the side and I got a Diet Coke instead.
There you go.
Man. Now I want to talk a little bit more about just your transition into coaching the NC Courage, like, from doing the youth thing to now coaching professionals. I know that there's a lot of similarities, but what are some of the differences? Like you're now dealing with adults who they're doing this for a living, and you've got to make decisions that could impact somebody's living, which is different from a kid who just wants to do this because it's fun. They want to hang out with your friends, like you were saying earlier. What are some of those lessons and some of those things that you've had to navigate around dealing with professionals now?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I'm still learning. I ask the players a lot. I talk with the players a lot individually. Sometimes if I see something, I like to think I read the room pretty well. Yeah, look, the difference is every time pros want to play, right? But the kids I was fortunate to work with always wanted to play as well. But I think when it comes to the pro level, the biggest piece is understand the roles are different, and the explanation of those roles are harder because sometimes they just don't want to hear it, right? I think we're fortunate to have really great players here and just good people. And that, the competitiveness within our culture is so important. And I feel that when you're making those decisions, you have to, and I probably could do a better job of communicating with them as well about where they stand or certain things. But the one thing we always talk about is every day in training, you have to work to get better. But you also have to have a realization, you have to have an understanding of what's in front of you. If player A is outperforming, then that's the decision, right? And I always tell the players, make my life hard, but don't make my life hard solely based on effort. Make my life hard based on everything we're asking you to do. The one thing I give a lot of our players credit for is that they do come every single day and work regardless of the situation they're in. But navigating from youth, it's different because youth, they're paying. So there's an expectation like I should be playing because I'm paying. Where on the pro side, it's, you're being paid to do a job. And I've tried to take that away a little bit and sort of see where it goes. But yeah, it's a hard piece. It really is. And that's probably the toughest thing that I've had to adjust to and still am, just because it's my first time doing it.
Yeah, I'm sure the adjustment's got to be hard if you got to tell somebody like, hey, you're cut, because it is someone's livelihood. It's a harsh reality that you have to deal with. Now, you mentioned about the competitive culture on your team. Have you ever encountered, or how difficult is it? A lot of people think that all pro athletes are competitive. Even collegiate athletes are competitive. And from my experience, that's not always the case. Some people may just play a sport because they're simply just good at it, and that's how they can make a living. Have you ever run into the fact that, sometimes it's actually hard to build that competitive culture?
Yeah, it is. And I think the one thing I told the players at the beginning of the year was, we'll help navigate you through the standards. It's your job to set the standards for what you want your culture to be. And holding each other, it forces them to hold themselves accountable a little bit more. Whereas if we're telling you this is what the standard is, they may not know what it is. The best part for us is we have unbelievable veterans here who've been here through all of our 5-6 years here. So they understand they're the ones that have created that standard. So they're the ones that set that bar. So when that happens and they see that player who's been here, who's won every championship, who's played in World Cups, who's played in the Olympics, is the highest level working player out there, it's hard to not match that, right? And if you want to be a pro and you have goals and expectations, then You have to. It's no different than doing a job. If you want to excel, then you can do the best you can in your job. Because at the end of the day, unless you own your own business, someone's always going to be above you, and you have to be willing to put the work in to match them or jump them. And you always have to have your name ready to be called, and it's always next man up mentality, as this past weekend showed. But yeah, it's them that creates the standards and hold each other accountable to match them.
I want to ask you this. For anybody who's listening to this, if you want to go to WRLSportsFan.com, you can hear a lot of the transition, going back in our archives from Paul Riley to Sean Nahas becoming the head coach and all of that. And with everything that went down last year, you can go back and you can, listen and read those things. But when all that stuff was happening, when those allegations were being levied against Paul Riley, when, he was then kind of suspended, then fired from the squad, and then you're stepping in, I know that it was like crazy for the squad and the team, and you were helping to keep everything together. What was it like for you then going home and having to have those conversations with your family and family members who are maybe in New York or friends who are like, yo, dude, what's going on? How are you navigating that in your personal life so that you could still come back and be that guy that was the rock for the team when you were there in a professional sense?
Yeah, man, Chris, that's the first time someone's ever actually really asked me about that in that regard, in that way. I never turned off from it. I didn't talk to a lot of people about it. My sole focus was making sure that the players were okay. My sole focus wasn't about me. It wasn't about the stat. It was really just about how are we going to get these players to still want to come and do this, because they didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
And they just wanted to play the game. And yeah, I mean, when I got that call that things were going down and was asked, hey, we need you to step in to be an interim, I said no originally. I didn't want to do it because of everything that was going on and the black eye that was being, not the black eye, but the story that was being levied out there. Yeah. And still, the allegations, having been around Paul for, the time that I was here, sometimes you're like, man, I don't want to believe this. And this is real. And I really just separated myself from that whole thing in that regard. But my whole sole focus was the players. How are we going to protect them? How's the club going to make sure they're taken care of? And I sheltered them a little bit. I wanted to be the voice piece. I wanted to be the one that took all the questions. I wanted to be the ones that answered all the questions, that if players didn't want to do something, that I was one saying, we're not doing that. And it was, to be honest, it's been a really big reward to have the opportunity to bring the players through that. Because when I first jumped in, I was a little bit scared, because I didn't know what the heck was going on, and I didn't want to misstep. I didn't want to do something wrong. I just wanted to help them. And I never turned off from it. And I'll be honest, I still haven't.
If you don't mind, we'll follow up on that. You said that you initially turned it down. What changed? How did you change from like, nah, I'm not going to do this, to, okay, I'll be interim, and then eventually becoming head coach? What changed?
The players. I originally spoke with front office the night of. I had basically a half hour to decide, because they had to go talk. They had to go talk to the players on a Zoom call about what was going down, because the players wanted direction. They didn't want to go into the next day without direction. And I said, no, I'm not ready. In terms of mentally, I'm not ready. This whole thing is just a lot. And then I spoke with our captain, Kiwi, Abby Arsig, and she talked me out of it. Not talked me out of it, but she changed my mind. Because I heard in her how important it was for them to have stability, and them to have someone that has been around them, that knows them, that can look out for them, rather than having a whole new crew come in that now it flips everything on its head. So that changed. So then I made a few calls, talked to my brother. I talked to Nathan. It's just one of my current assistant coaches and goalkeeper coach. Got his feedback. I talked to my old boss at the youth club, get his personal opinion, and all things said, do it, and you have to do it. It's an opportunity, and it's an opportunity that no one else is going to get. One, because of the situation that you're in and what you can potentially do with it, but also an opportunity to get these players back to where they want to be and loving the game and recreating that culture and sort of changing the narrative of where we're at.
Oh. So it sounds like, from everything you're telling me, the players trusted you, which is a very, very difficult thing to earn as a coach. What are things that you do, not only big and long term, but just on a daily basis, to not only earn their trust but keep their trust?
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing I'm navigating now, from coming from an assistant role to a head coaching role, because that's where that was earned, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't given. I mean, I remember the first day I stepped on the training field. I returned from the U20 World Cup, and the first day I stepped on the field, Caitlin Rowland yelled at me for not giving her the ball fast enough. And I said, "What just happened? Like, what is happening? Why am I getting yelled at?" And not in a negative way. It was just like, "We need the ball, we need the ball." And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure, here, like, go ahead, go get them." And from that side of it, for me, the trust was how you see a player and notice that, okay, look, they need a talking to, or they need an arm around, or they need a little bit of advice, or we see something that we can help them with and we coach them. And now going into the head coaching role, or just being there for the players when they need you to be. Now going into a head coaching role, you're now making decisions that, to your point earlier, does affect them a little bit. I'm a team first person. That's how I'll always be, especially when you're a team sport. But I think that part's been the hardest thing for me, is how do I keep that level of trust? And I think all you can do is you continuously have individual conversations with them and open up that door of vulnerability to say, how can I be better? What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And not telling them everything, but having them have ownership, let them trust them enough in the outside world to be able to do what they want to do, that I trust that they're going to be a pro and represent the club in the right way. I think that's how you do it, because at the end, they're people. People may question a lot of things that I do, and I get it, but at the end of the day, that no one will ever be able to say that I didn't take care of the players during this time or any time.
Right. Are you living a dream right now? Like, did you always want to become the head coach of a professional team, or did you always see yourself on the youth level or working with youth? Is this exactly what you wanted to do? Is this something that maybe just kind of you stumbled upon?
No, I definitely didn't stumble. Well, I stumbled upon the progressions, right, that I came through. When I first started coaching, I remember a buddy of mine who I did this with sent me a picture of a business card that I made on my own computer when I was first starting out. When I was named head coach here, he sent it to me the same day. And I completely forgot about these business cards that we made, because it was individual training sessions and group training sessions. And it was basically no charge. We did it for free to sort of get our names out there and sort of start our own careers. And he sent a picture and said, from where it started to where it is now. And that was massive for me. Sorry. We have automatic lights here in the office. So, so I think that part was important. And then as I started my youth career, I just started to fall in love with it. I sort of made it my own, and, created my own storylines and my own niche. Helped, feel like we helped a lot of youth players, but never felt like pro was where I wanted to go, because when I first was here, there was no pro team here. It was on the men's side. And I think that part was rewarding. And then having the opportunity to work with youth national teams, I think, is really where I started to think, all right, this could be something. And then my progressions through the youth clubs and then the national team and then the assistant coaching here to this, I'd probably say, yeah, I am living a dream, but I'm also doing it in my home state, which I consider to be my home state now, with the home club. And, going from youth to pro, not many people can say that. I'd probably say in the country, let alone the world.
It's awesome.
All right. My final question for you is, professionally, for the women, how and where does it need to grow the most here in the U.S. with the NWSL?
Investment. You need to invest in these women. Yeah, I talk a lot about it, especially on my social media. You need to invest in these women. I think yesterday's groundbreaking CBA was so important. Yeah. Where people now realize that it doesn't matter if you're male, female, whatever, you know, in terms of race, gender, any of that stuff. If you're good at your job, you should be paid equally.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I look at it as, if I'm going to, you know, you hear all these stories, but if I'm going to be a CEO of a company and it's me and a female, and the female beats me out, she shouldn't, now that the level of pay shouldn't drop because of that. She should be getting the same payment that I was going to get if that was even the case. And I feel that the investment is so important. I think the marketing is important. I think the fan culture is so important. You know, I think that type of stuff, but all that stuff doesn't happen unless you market. We have the best, every weekend we have the best players in the world coming through our facility to play. And that has to be turned around. And I think the only way to do that is investment. And you're seeing that more and more. You're seeing Kevin Durant invest into Gotham. You see Naomi invest with us. You see Angel City has thousands of investors. But,
yeah,
you know, it's a positive. It can't be like this ebbs and flows. It's just got to be, everyone's just got to realize this isn't going anywhere. It's here to stay. And let's run with it and make it the best we possibly can, rather than watching it fail because of our inactivity.
Absolutely. And then we're hoping that we are doing our part as well by wanting to interview different folks and having the platform to talk about it. And I've taken my wife and my daughter to games, and they've absolutely loved it. So we planned on going to more as well. So
appreciate it.
First off, thank you so much for joining us. We learned a little bit more about you. So we'll make sure that maybe one day we can have a nice pizza with you with no sweet tea. We'll just leave that to the side.
Anytime you guys want to hit it up, it's down the road. 5 minutes. The ice cream store, the ice cream shops, the fresh ice cream shops right across the street. Desserts.
I'll see you in about 25 minutes.
I might have a nice salad with you guys while you're there. Just get the aroma. I might add in a beer or something. Who knows?
Yeah. All good.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate you guys having me. Thanks so much.
We want to thank Mr. Nahas, Mr. Sean Nahas, for speaking with us. At some point, I'm going to try to convince him to have some vegan pizza. Do you think he'll take me up on that offer?
He might, as long as it's from his place out there in Cary that he talked about. So as long as it's from there, I'm sure he'll be down.
Okay, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Yeah,
maybe. You know, something that brought me that really interests me as someone who has coached collegiately female athletics, women's athletics, being a male coach in that role and knowing what happened in the situation with Paul Riley and those players. Trust is such a big thing. Again, coaches and athletes, there has to be a level of trust no matter what the team or level it is. But I will say, from being a male coach coaching young women, there has to be a level of trust that is earned, that they're in a safe environment, and that they're not going to be taken advantage of in any way, shape, or form. So that's why I asked him that question about trust, and it seems like he does have the trust of those young women on that team.
Absolutely. You may remember right after the team went through everything with Paul Riley, and I think they had their last game of the regular season. Players came out and said, hey, we want him to have that interim status taken off. We want him to be our head coach. The players were absolutely riding for him, and to hear that he initially didn't want to take it was very interesting, and that players kind of had to talk him into it, especially Abby Erceg. It's very interesting that happened. And so I kind of wonder what would have happened if he wasn't, if he did say no. But at the same time, I know that, the best result happened with him being there and creating that trust, creating the atmosphere that players love and they can feel safe in as they're expanding their professional careers.
By the way, Chris, do you know I'm viral?
Yeah, Mr. Dennis Jamel Cox is also an influencer.
Yeah, apparently I'm an influencer now. So follow me on TikTok at The Fan Rookie, along with Twitter and Instagram at The Fan Rookie. You'll know why.
Follow me on TikTok. I don't have any videos up as of right now, as of this recording, but I will have some up very soon. And hopefully I can follow in the footsteps of the influencer, Dennis Jamel Cox. Also, stay tuned for next week's Culture State podcast, because Grant Hill, former Duke star, former NBA star, he will be on this show. It's going to be amazing. Thank you guys so much for listening. It's the Culture State Podcast.
The Culture State Podcast, part of the Capital Broadcasting Podcast Network, with new shows coming out every Wednesday. Download and subscribe from wherever you get your podcasts, including the WREL Sports Fan app.